Cameron Steiner is a collector with a capital C. He kindly hosted me on his podcast, Collector's Gene Radio, several weeks back, so this conversation was an effortless progression of our budding friendship. In a now rare in-person recording, Cam and I discuss how he began collecting, why he collects, and some of the answers to some of his own questions. Cameron has exceptional taste honed by his grandparents, which he has extended to his own personal watch collection. Having spent a few minutes in his home, I can tell he and his wife's knack for entertaining makes it especially fun to hunt for new ephemera. Please enjoy my conversation with Cameron Steiner. I'm your host, Wesley Smith, and you're listening to the Standard Age Podcast. Cam, thanks so much for coming on the show. Are we allowed to say where we are?
We absolutely should say where we are.
Why don't you say where we are?
Okay, we are currently at the Clive Cussler car collection, which is currently ran by his wife, Janet, who has become a close friend of mine. And she has just the most fantastic stories and a very tasteful car collection here. And it's private, but she's always happy to show anybody that is interested. So I felt like this would be a great place for us to record. And we're actually sitting in the library right now of the car collection buildings, if you will. And we're surrounded by every single book plus more of what Clive wrote in his heyday. And it's over 100 books, which is pretty amazing.
Well, what's crazy is when we pulled into the parking lot, the first thing I said is because we followed each other over here. We weren't riding in the same car. I get out, and the first question I asked was, Cussler, as in Clive Cussler? And you were like, yeah, that's the one. And I immediately thought of, and shout out James Lambden.
Shout out James.
And Doxa Watches.
Yep. And after I had James on Collector's Gene Radio, I told you this earlier, I know he's such a big Clive fan. We actually spoke about Clive on our episode.
Yeah.
And I felt like the appropriate thing to do would be to gift him a Clive book that was signed by Clive. So I know that James was pretty stoked on that. But
yeah.
The thing about this car collection is what you wish every car collector would be, which is kind of twofold. One, they're happy to show you. Sure. And two, they know the history. They know the period. They have the story behind it. They have everything dialed in to where that, and they're not just letting you roam around. Right. They're taking you through the history. I mean, I don't know about you, but I get goosebumps every time I come here because the stories get better and better and better, and the history and the knowledge. And Janet is just such a fantastic person. She knows everything.
Yeah, it's amazing. You obviously mentioned Collector's Gene Radio, your podcast. You were gracious enough to host me on, I guess, I don't know, several weeks ago now. You're obviously a collector yourself, needless to say. You go to vintage shops with your grandmother?
It's my favorite thing to do.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Okay. So when did that start in your life?
Man.
Like specifically with your grandmother?
I couldn't tell you when that started because we've been doing it for a long time, and collecting is definitely a product of both sets of my grandparents on both sides.
Okay.
And the grandmother that I happen to go antique shopping with is the grandmother on my mom's side, and she's a collector. She's been collecting for a long time. She's a collector of things like glass and crystal and things like that, and decanters. She loves decanters.
Cool.
And so we started going together, and eventually it just got to the point where we were going to the same shops, and the people knew us when we go, and they know what I like to buy, what I don't like to buy, and so it's always a fun little activity for us when I'm visiting.
That's great. So where does she live? Where are the bulk of these shops?
In New York, in Long Island,
okay.
On the north side of the shore there, and there's all these little villages around where she lives, which is so cool because it's so colonial feeling. You go into these little villages and there's shops everywhere, and one place that we go is in Locust Valley, which is a 2-minute drive down the street, and it's fantastic. There's a couple antique shops, but there's one in particular that I always go to, that I always find stuff at, and it's great.
I'm assuming those stores have been around for ages.
Ages, not as long as we'd probably think, because the people that run them are younger, and
Oh, okay.
there's old stuff in them,
Right, right.
but
Yeah. It's like
and
somebody who started a vintage store, for
exactly,
clothing.
exactly.
Right,
And
right.
so you never know what you're going to find, and we always have a good time.
How do you decide on what to collect for yourself?
I'm a what meets my eye type of collector.
Okay.
I think with everything, I appreciate everything. It might not necessarily be my taste, but I try and have appreciation for everything because it makes me appreciate the things that I do like
Mm-hmm.
even more. And so I really just poke around these places and I'm like, okay, I like this. I don't like this. Sometimes you really like something, but the price doesn't make sense. So you have to have boundaries, because I know that a wine bottle coaster that's vintage shouldn't be more than maybe $20.
Right.
And you go to some of these places and they're 50, 60, 70, $80. And you're just like, whoa, that doesn't make sense. Right. So you have to have sometimes discipline, unless it's something really special or there's a design detail or something that is just, gives you that feeling that you have to have it.
Does like your approach to collecting, does it come in waves, so to speak? Like, are you looking at wine bottle coasters for a hot minute and then you jump down another rabbit hole of,
Yeah.
different subject matter?
That's a good question. I think a lot of that stuff is situational, right? Wine bottle coasters is such like a passive thing that I collect, and it's always a treat to go to an antique shop and find one.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not actively online looking for them.
Mm-hmm.
There are things like antiques or certain ceramic designers or ceramicists, whatever that word is.
Sounds right.
I couldn't spell it if you asked me, but there's certain people that I look out for in terms of that I'm consistently on the hunt for things. But I love the idea of going to a store without something in mind that I want to buy, and you find something and you bring it home and you're so excited because that's the hunt.
Right. Discovery almost.
Discovery.
Yeah.
The discovery side of things is so exciting, and then you get the ownership.
I would imagine for some people, like, influence has to be a part of this, where it's, I don't know, like we talk about Ralph Lauren often. We both have worked for Ralph once
Yep.
upon a time. So you can't deny Ralph and his eye, his taste, and how he puts a space together, completes a space. Go in the Rhinelander mansion, it speaks
Right.
for itself. Look at Oprah's interview with him in Telluride, it speaks for itself. I mean, he's got blankets on top of blankets, I think, or like Asian rugs or like Persian rugs
Right. Everywhere.
on top of Persian rugs. Like,
Yeah.
he's a maximalist in that way. Do you consider yourself a maximalist?
Well, you just came to my house. You tell me. You saw. I mean, I had.
I think it's like a healthy use of the space, I would say.
No, I think there's a time and place for that.
You're not a minimalist.
I'm
I will
not a
say that.
minimalist. That's for
Right.
sure. Because I like too many things to not have them out.
Right.
But I think there's a fine line between just having crap everywhere versus displaying them in a way that is aesthetically pleasing. And I think there's certain, like, if you look at photos of Ralph's office, there are books and pictures and paintings lined, stacked up to the gills.
Right.
But it looks so damn good.
Right.
And I'm totally okay with that. You saw how many books I had that I don't know what to do with that are just sitting in that cabinet. I also love the idea of stacking them in front of a table somewhere. Because if you do it the right way, maximalism is an art form, and it is a design style. And when you do it right, I mean, there's a reason it exists.
I've seen books stacked alongside like a Chesterfield as almost like a side table.
Correct. And I love the idea of that.
Yeah, same.
So, I'm a maximalist to an extent, but I don't have things stacked everywhere that you can't walk around. But I love the idea of it.
Now, do you and your wife entertain?
All
Are
the
you
time.
guys big entertainers?
When we can, we love to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's our favorite thing to do is to host. Family, friends, whatever it may be.
Now, are we talking dinner? Are we just talking drinks? Are we talking both? Does it start at 2 p.m.? Like, what's an ideal
It
party?
depends on
that
the
you guys
group.
run? Okay.
It totally depends on the group. She threw me a amazing 30th birthday at our house for 30 of our friends and family. And we had a huge dinner outside with all these tables and candles, and we just had so much fun, and people came over early, people stayed late. And so it definitely depends. We don't get to do it as often as we'd like based on, where friends are located, but with family, we host quite often.
What's the last thing you bought that you would sort of put under the envelope of part of the collection?
Ooh, good question. I just had, well, I was just gifted something, which doesn't happen often. And when I get gifted something for something that I collect, it's always special. So
We're not talking about standard age t-shirts.
we are. I collect these things called stirrup cups.
Yes, I want to talk to you about these.
Yes. So I started collecting them because I found one in New York in Locust Valley, and I fell in love. And I fell in love for multiple reasons. One, it was Gucci, and I had no idea that Gucci made stirrup cups, and I just went absolutely bananas for it.
Okay, I want to interrupt you only because before you go further, what the hell is a stirrup cup?
Yes, and that's what I didn't know until I bought one, because the reason I was so attracted to this one in the first place was it had a horse head on it. And I love everything equestrian, probably because I love Ralph, but I love everything equestrian. So horses and stirrups and all these things. So I was so excited. And I looked at the price and I was like, okay, why is this horse head cup? And this is really cheap for this thing. It was $150.
Okay. And it's sterling silver?
I think the ones that Gucci made, the cup part is probably brass plated.
Okay.
So, but I'm not positive. I don't think it's sterling silver. The head might be, but because it's really heavy. So I was confused why just this little cup would be $150. Come to find, these Gucci stirrup cups sell for like $300-$400 a piece. So it was actually cheap. It was a good buy.
Wow.
But I was looking at it. I was looking at it at the store, and the lady at the store was telling me, she's like, okay, a stirrup cup was used for wealthy hunters way back in the day. They would go out on a hunt, and before they would go out on the hunt at night, usually, the butler would come in with a tray of stirrup cups filled to the brim with whiskey. You do a big whiskey cheers, and when you finish, the cup stands up on the animal's head. It's designed to stand upright on the animal's head. And so you put it back down, and the butler would come and put them on the tray and walk away. So that's why it's called a stirrup cup. And so anyway, I fell in love with these, and I realized Gucci made a whole slew of animals and all these things. So I've really wanted to collect them all, and I've been pretty verbal about that. And my best friend's mom, who's practically family for me, if not family, if it wasn't for blood, it would be family.
Sure.
And we go over there for Sunday dinner all the time. And she just came out with a Gucci bag and was like, hey, I got you something. And she got me the dog version, which is the other one I really wanted. And there's a rabbit, and there's a stag, there's a fox, there's a deer. So there's all these different ones that you can collect over time.
Now, were they all made in this, like, a particular era?
Yeah, I don't know the exact era. I'm assuming
But they all come from around the same time.
they were sold as a set.
Oh,
I'm sure
see.
back in the day you could probably buy them individually, but I've seen them at auction or photos of them at auction, like in a leather briefcase as a set.
So how many are there total?
I want to say there's probably somewhere between 6 and 8 different animals.
Right. Okay. So you're looking at like $4,000 for a set.
I mean, they go for really expensive. Yeah. And you could buy them without, I've seen them as a set without the box or anything for like $1,800, which isn't a bad buy. You just have to like them enough to spend $1,800 for a whole set.
So the tops of the heads of these animals are flat?
They're designed, they don't look flat.
That's where I'm going confused.
Yeah. I should have showed you when you came over, but they're designed to sit flat. So when you flip them over, you don't know how it's done, but it's just the way it's designed. They sit maybe on the ears and then on the snout of whatever animal it is.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, super interesting.
Wow.
So that was a gift that I got. Long-winded story on the last thing I got.
That's what these are all about.
And the last thing I bought was actually, I was antiquing the other day at a store 5 minutes from my house, and I always look at the floor on these places.
Okay.
And because you never know what people put on the floor. Usually they put a lot of either good stuff on the floor or things that they don't want you to find on the floor. That's my theory.
Interesting.
And there's this verdigris ram's head bull on a pedestal. And it was just, it's like this, I can't tell if it's Swedish. To me, it's like more of a Swedish design.
What does verdigris mean?
I'd have to show you to explain, but it's got this like green patina to it almost.
Okay.
And it's this like rounded ribbed bowl with 2 ram's heads on the side
Okay.
and on a pedestal. And I was like, this would make for the coolest centerpiece on our kitchen table. I don't know if you even saw it, but probably walked right past it. And so that was the last thing I bought, and it was like $49.
Wow.
And I guarantee a antiques dealer online or an interior designer would probably sell something like that for at least triple or quadruple of what I found it for. And so it wasn't expensive. It has chips in it. It's got dings to it. It's whatever.
Right.
But you wouldn't notice it unless you really looked at it. And so that's the last thing I bought last week.
And where did you get it?
There's an antique store down the street from me. It's called
Local.
Yeah, local place. Yeah, it's called Scottsdale Marketplace. It's basically, the other name for it is 35 shops. So you walk in and there's 35 individual like antique dealers, if you will, within the store.
Oh, I think I've been in there.
You probably have.
Like
It's right next
years
to
ago.
that, right next to that
Couple
AJ's over there. We passed it on the way back from golf this morning. Yeah,
Nice.
yeah, cool spot.
You also collect barware.
Yes, which
Is
the
that-
stirrup cups fall under, but yeah.
Sure. Yes, exactly. Is that sort of just adjacent a byproduct of your joy for entertainment, or did that start before you got married and had a house and et cetera, or
Yeah,
where did the love of barware come into play?
the vintage barware thing I've always appreciated, but I never collected until pretty recently when I had Paul Crotton on. He's the editor-in-chief of Route Report.
Yep.
And I had him on the show, and he collects vintage barware. And he sent me a video after of this. I think it was a jigger. And when you turn it over, or when you go to pour it, a song plays.
No way.
And it was the most mind-blowing little piece of, I mean, it wasn't very little, but just the coolest thing. And I was like, wow, vintage barware is so cool, because I've collected vintage serveware for a long time, different trays and bowls. And I love to get a vintage bowl that I just bought and put it out when we have people over and put, crackers in it or,
Sure, yeah.
Fruit, whatever it may be. And so I view vintage barware as kind of an adjacent collecting segment for me of the vintage serveware that I like to collect. Vintage caviar servers, which most people just put a caviar tin on a tray and put it out. But like the real way you do it is you put ice in a bowl, and then the caviar sits in the tin in another tray that sits above the ice so it stays cool.
Right.
And so I love all this little stuff that has silly uses that maybe you use a couple times a year. But when you do, it just puts a smile on your face.
Do you find you struggle for space to store these things?
I somehow tend to always find a place for the things that I really, really want to have. Of course, there's like vintage furniture that I love to buy, and I've been able to get some, but that stuff really takes up a lot of space.
Totally.
But something like a vintage caviar server, it's a lot of times crystal or silver, and it looks like a piece of decor, or it looks like a bowl. And so they're also really cool on a bookshelf or in a bedroom on a dresser. And when you want to use it, you go grab it, you clean it out real quick, make sure it's not dusty or something, and you use it for what its purpose is. But I like finding dual uses for that stuff.
Yeah, I've got a mean game of Russian dolls that go on, just like within,
Yeah, exactly.
which is kind of funny. What did you do at Ralph, by the way? I don't remember.
It was a internship when I was in college,
Oh, okay.
and it was a summer internship.
So you're in the offices?
I was in the offices off Madison Ave, and I was supposed to be in the sales and planning department for
Wholesale?
accessories,
Okay, specific, but
like polo
for wholesale?
accessories. No, for polo stores and whatever,
Sure,
Ralph
yeah.
stores. It was like this big intern program. You had to apply, you had to get accepted, whatever. So I get there, and the department that I'm working in is being filled by a family friend. So they just brought in another intern who wasn't part of our program, but she was a friend of a friend of a friend. And that's fine. But I didn't really have much to do. So I just went to another team, and I was like, hey, let me know what you need help with. So I helped with their team. And then I went eventually to one of the CFOs, and I was like, hey, he was a CFO that actually came from Burberry to come and work at Ralph, which was really cool.
Yeah.
And
What year was this?
this was 2015. I want to say 2015.
So these were like pretty good years for Burberry, if I'm not mistaken. Or
Yeah.
it was just before it.
Yeah, it was kind of on that cusp of good or bad. I don't remember, but he had left Burberry.
What's her name? Arenz, that lady that was the CEO and left and went to Apple.
Oh, I don't remember.
Like Burberry's doing really well. Elizabeth Arenz? Anyway, I'll probably cut this out.
All good. And so I end up helping the CFO with like this global project that he was working on, and it was too big of a project to ever come to fruition, and that was kind of the last thing I worked on. So most of my time spent at Ralph was I would go over to Ralph's offices and just mosey around and just get inspo and just get fully immersed in his world and his offices. And there's all these, I think they call them rig rooms is what they were. And they would basically
A rig room. Yeah.
And they would basically set up, they had like a whole new collection of Purple Label, and they made this whole Art Deco rig room as if you were in someone's Art Deco apartment, and they had all the different mannequins out with all the new outfits. And I would go and I would just kind of just soak it all in. And because like I didn't have much to do work wise, and technically I wasn't allowed to help anyone else. I was doing that stuff under the table.
Right.
And so I was just like, screw it. I'm just going to go see what all this is about.
Yeah.
And it was amazing.
So obviously, the merchandising, like acumen, if you will, in Ralph is just second to none. Unbelievable aptitude for that. And like, they're called rigs. Like the mannequins at Ralph Lauren, they always call them rigs. So
Right.
you put this up on a rig. So then there's the rig room, which is really just a mannequin, effectively.
And you just
but
walk
they would
into this whole
create these
world.
environments. Yeah.
Yeah. And the fact that they would put that much effort into creating a small area just so you can get a feel for what the scene is the sole reason why Ralph is Ralph.
Totally.
And Todd Snyder does stuff like that. And
who's a former Ralph employee.
who's an alum. And, when people are alums of Ralph, a lot of them go on to do great things. And Todd's a perfect example of that. And Todd does rig rooms, and he does it very well.
Yeah, he's there are very few brands that I shop from routinely outside of my own, of course.
Yep.
Ralph's one of them, Todd's one of them. There's a couple others, but those are the main two,
For
really.
sure.
And shout out Kenny Thomas. Doubt he's listening. Do you know Kenny?
I don't think so.
He's really tight with Todd, and I think actually he's now the creative director. And but forever he was kind of the main photographer that would shoot all the catalogs, anything that was a photograph of Todd Snyder stuff. Like Kenny was
Amazing.
shooting it. And anyway, Kenny's the man. Also a North Carolina guy.
Love that.
So what inspired you to start your podcast?
So I've always loved collecting. I've always loved collecting things
Yeah.
and having a purpose. And I know that there's a lot of other people out there that also collect things, not just watches or cars. I mean, people collect all sorts of stuff. And so there was a couple people that I really had in mind that are really, really high caliber, high level people. And I said, if I can get them on to come and talk about the things they collect, not what's sitting in the safe, not the most expensive thing they own, not the rarest thing they own, but talk about the passion and ask somewhat maybe riveting questions, I'd like to say, if I may, but ask them questions that I find interesting enough that I hope everyone else will. And if I can get these people to say yes, then I'm going to see what I could do with this. And
so it all comes back to sharing, like you said.
It all comes back to sharing. And I think that that's like the best part about what Janet does is she has an amazing collection here, and you will drive past this building 50 times a year and never know it's here.
Yeah.
But she's happy to let you in and show you everything. And not only that, she's happy to tell you all the stories, how she bought it, when she bought it, what she was bidding, what other things she was bidding on at the time, And so anyway, that's why I started it. And I said, this is just for fun. This is a hobby. And this is a way for me to talk with these people because I want to be more immersed in their world. And I hope that they appreciate the things that I'm going to ask them. And next time I'm in London and I want to go hang out with this person, yeah, let's do it. You know, and it really just unfolded from there.
Yeah. No, that's great. You started at co-hosting with your brother, right?
I did, and he got a job with Apple, and anytime we wanted to record, it had to go through all these levels with Apple, and I'm like, look,
Oh, so
I'm
okay.
like, I don't need Apple holding me back to do that, and it's fine. It worked out. You know, he's a busy guy, so that's all good.
Right. I want to get in kind of like nitty gritty details too, because I notice like when you post, first of all, I very often use black and white images
Yep.
for my post. Is there any reason why you chose black and white?
So I originally started out as doing just brown, which is like chocolate brown, kind of is the color of Collector's Gene. It's kind of the brand color. Oddly, just because it's my favorite color, and people are like, "Why is brown your favorite color?" And I'm like, I couldn't give you a reason. It just was my favorite color.
Is that right?
Yeah, I don't know why. I just clothing wise, and not only brown, but like creams and whites and neutrals are
It's
like
versatile.
kind of my favorite. And so I think brown in general has always been like a favorite color of mine. I love it on clothing. I love it in cars. I love it, you know, here and there. And so I started out doing brown photos of just the logo and the name of who was coming on. And just recently, I was like, why don't I post a picture of the guest I'm having? Because now my page just looks like all these brown blocks, and it's like not really interesting to look at. And so I wish I could go back and edit all the previous ones, because I've gone ahead on the episodes and updated the photo, but I can't do that on social media. And so I chose black and white because I think for me, it's aesthetically pleasing. It's got this vintage Art Deco feel to it,
Sure.
which plays along with the logo that I created, which is with Art Deco, you know, font. And I just love that period. And I find that anything Art Deco can be modern, and anything Art Deco goes with modern. And you can have an Eames chair and a amazing Art Deco tray or side table sitting right next to it, and it looks amazing, right? So I love the juxtaposition of mixing Art Deco with everything.
Yeah. I love old and modern together.
Absolutely. And so I just thought black and white would be a easy way to kind of add a little pizzazz to that. And
Yeah.
to me, it's aesthetically pleasing.
You probably learned that a lot in Ralph's office.
Yeah, I mean, and I think I'm just naturally attracted to that because I've seen so much of it, right? There's a lot of black and white in my grandmother's home in New York, and, you know, it's not a modern black and gray and white home,
Right.
but when you have black and white photos and all that sort of stuff, there's something so elegant about it. I find black and white to be so elegant.
I think it's really timeless.
Yep.
I think you and I we were talking about the monochrome
Yeah.
earlier, Leica cameras. And that's the whole reason to own one of those, I think.
Right.
Is that I have other reasons that I'll cut out.
Yeah.
But I basically, well, I'll say it on the show. It doesn't matter. So I bought my monochrome because hopefully within the next year or something, give or take, my wife and I will become parents.
Right.
And I really wanted to capture the growth of my kid on black and white film.
Yep.
And like that's literally, well, it's a digital camera, so it's not film. But the point being is that it'll be timeless as a result. And I think that extends itself to home decor as well. Like,
100%.
yeah.
Even my wife and I's wedding photos, we asked our photographer, can we send you all of our favorite photos from that day? Once you send us everything, can you also send us a black and white version?
I have maybe my favorite image from the wedding, like that was sort of a candid, not posed.
Yep.
It's a black and white I have in my office.
Yeah.
I'll have to text it to you. When I'm editing this, it will remind me to
Yes,
to send
definitely.
you that photo.
Yeah, no, I mean the currently the one photo from our wedding that we have up in our house in a Ralph frame is a candid black and white photo of us cutting our cake.
Oh, I know the one. I saw it.
You saw it earlier, and it's spectacular. I just love it.
So further, if we could stay on Instagram for 2 seconds.
Yes.
I noticed you don't use hashtags in your post. You use them in the comments.
I don't know why I do that.
Okay.
Is that wrong?
God,
Is that
I was
wrong?
really hoping that you had like
I don't have a nugget for you. I wish I did.
a really good reason. Because I hate the look of hashtags.
Yeah.
And I think I want to start doing it in the comments. because I saw that you did it, and it's not me ripping you off, but I do aesthetically prefer not having the hashtags within the caption, because the caption's always there. You can't always see the comments, I guess, when you're like swiping, I
Right.
guess. I don't know. I just think it looks better. And I was like, man, I should really adopt this because it's just better looking.
Yeah. No,
And it looks less thirsty.
yeah,
Like it just looks a little desperate.
I should probably at least do some research if I'm even benefiting from putting them in the comments.
Yeah,
Because
maybe I should as well.
I don't know. I wish I had a nugget for you, but the only reason I did it is so that it wasn't showing up in the caption.
So there's no strategy.
There's zero strategy that I know of, which I'm probably shooting myself in the foot on.
Subconscious.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's take a step back and look in the broader picture of the whole thing for Collector's Gene. What is the strategy for the show? Is there one?
Yeah, I mean, eventually, and I think pretty soon here, I'm working on a website right now. I have someone who's been helping me out. His name's Miles, and he's fantastic. He's been working on the website for me. And the goal is to, one, have a hub that just has a place where I can link to the podcast and almost more like a landing page. But I've also been, over the last like year or so, been sourcing cool little vintage things that I think are fun and that I can put on the site for people to buy, because I like finding obscure things. Like one of the things I was telling you earlier is Petrosian, which is maybe the most well-known caviar brand, must have had some sort of ephemera gift that they gave to a client or a group of clients, and it's a double deck of Petrosian playing cards, and it's in this blue velvet case. And so I found that, and as much as I want to keep it, I'm like, this would be really cool to sell on the website.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be exorbitant, and I'm not trying to like price gouge. I want to sell things that I find are cool that other people might appreciate. So vintage ashtrays. I'm also making my own ashtray right now. That'll be done probably at the end of this month. And I'll put all this stuff on the site and have a cool place for people to go and buy stuff. And then eventually, my main goal would be, I'd love to have brand partnerships. So I'd love to have a partnership with Petrosian. And because I know my audience buys their product.
Right.
It's a perfect combo, right? Brands like Campari. I love Campari. I don't care if anyone doesn't drink it. It's one of my favorite brands. Besides the product, it's one of my favorite brands in the world.
Yeah.
And so I'd love to eventually work with brands like this, and that's what I would love for Collector's Gene to grow into, because that's kind of what it's all about.
Now, is this going to be like a pack and ship thing out of your house, or like, are you guys, as it grows, you'll find space, or are you going to get an office for it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure I'll just send stuff out of my house for as long as I can, and it's not going to be it's not going to make or break my day, which is why I'm not trying to charge $500 for an ashtray or even $100 for an ashtray.
Yeah.
It's not about that. It's about people getting curious, because I get people that reach out to me all the time. Oh, I love this ashtray. I would love to collect them. Or, hey, where'd you find this vintage, cocktail shaker and all this stuff? And I can tell them, but I'm like, it would be really cool to just be able to have this stuff for people to buy all the time. So the goal is to do basically like vintage volume drops. So volume 1 will have a couple things in it. Once they're gone, they're gone.
Cool.
Then I'll source a couple other things, put them on the site. Once they're gone, they're gone. And just kind of keep the momentum going and get people more interested in collecting, because the podcast isn't just about watches.
Right.
It's about vintage barware. It's about antiques. It's about art. It's about wine. And to get other people interested in those things simply because maybe I whetted their appetite a little bit by selling them a pair of vintage cards from a caviar brand. Now they might get into vintage caviar servers. I know I sure have, I love this stuff.
Is this how First Dibs started? Wasn't it that kind of like an antique sort of online e-tailer?
I know One Kings Lane kind of had a similar story. I'm sure First Dibs is very similar as well.
But I like it because you're curating it.
Yeah, and eventually, like, I'd love to get other people that have interests, that are pretty broad, to go out and curate a collection, and we'll sell it on the site. And this is the Wesley Smith collection that he sourced, of all the things that interest you that fit within a certain price range that we could sell on the website. You know what I mean? And that's kind of the goal, is to, one, get people more interested in other areas to collect things in, or even if it's one ashtray or one cocktail shaker, but also to get them familiar with other collectors, because these people are really important. And I think anyone that collects something is important because it's a story that they want to tell. It's a passion that they have. You know, I mean, it's kind of what it's all about.
With the ashtray, is it like a limited production, or is this going to be something you'll restock?
God willing, they sell.
Sure.
I'll keep making them, you know, but we'll see how that goes. You know,
I think it'd be cool to, like, version 1's brown, version 2's blue.
Right.
For, you know, like a martini blue.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a vintage martini ashtray that I love.
Me
and
too.
It's like,
do you have the amber colored one?
No, it's blue with
cool.
it's really short. It's maybe an inch tall, barely at an angle, so it's not straight up and down. It's sort of like beveled, if you will. And it's square, maybe a 5-inch square, 6-inch square tops, round in the middle, and then 2 places for basically a cigarette.
Okay, so I think we have the same one, but mine is amber colored.
Oh,
and then it has like a white martini.
You'll have to send me
on the flat edge.
Yeah.
I was thinking about putting that one on the site, but I'm like, damn, I kind of want to keep that one. It's kind of cool.
Same.
Because it's literally so tiny.
When I do these booths, like pop-ups and stuff, whether it be wind up or whatever, I usually sort of merchandise my stuff the way I would like a store if I had a brick and mortar. And I always bring that ashtray.
And I'm sure people want to buy it all the time.
Only one person's ever offered.
Really?
Or asked, rather.
Well, that's not good insight for my ashtrays that I'm buying.
Well, I mean, I think it's abundantly clear that I'm selling apparel.
Right,
you know, I think most people understand that it's just there for looks.
Yeah. No, I'm excited. They're the current batch that I ordered is brown, and I've posted a couple pictures of them on the web online, but not on the website yet. And the idea is, people just want to have these on their bookshelf or on their desk, or they want to gift them to somebody, because I love gifting. And that's kind of the idea behind it. Is I will do vintage drops, but I also want to create some products that resonate with the brand that'll be mainstays, whether I make, martini blue ashtrays or keep them brown or do black or whatever it may be.
Yeah. I think Matt Horanek would be all over that deck of cards.
I had a feeling like I almost felt like maybe I should just offer them to him or just send them to him as a gift instead of putting them on the site. But I don't know. They're pretty damn cool. It's like something I really want people to see.
Yeah.
But I'll give Matt a little heads up that they're coming up, and maybe he'll want them. But
so are you a Negroni guy?
Love a Negroni. It is the cocktail of choice, and it's great that Matt has brought so much light to Negronis. I mean, we can definitely thank him for creating this frenzy of Negroni lovers that we have here.
Totally.
And my grandfather used to drink them. I mean, oddly, that was like his drink of choice. I never really would have guessed that, but that was his drink of choice. And I like it because as much as people as we know that love Negronis, most people don't like them because they're bitter, they're floral. A lot of people don't like gin. A lot of people don't like Campari.
Yeah.
And so I love that when you meet someone that loves a Negroni, it's like, okay.
Cheers.
Yeah.
What's your gin of choice?
I love Monkey 47.
Okay.
It's always a great go-to. I mean, Tanqueray's a classic.
Yeah, that's what I use.
London dry gins are always a move, but I'm not too picky, to be honest. I'm really not.
Vermouth?
Vermouth, I love Punta Mess.
Okay.
If I could buy a vintage one, or sometimes I'll switch up the vermouth for something more like, more Amaro based or something like that is really fun. So Antico's great.
Yep.
So how about you?
I'm drawing a blank. It's like, God, what is the name of it? It's like Kochi? Cocchi, I think.
Okay. Something like
That's
that.
something else. But so I think Antica is like $30 to $40 a bottle.
Yeah.
Whereas Kochi, which I think is maybe even a little sweeter, is like $28.
Oh wow. Okay.
So
that's a
it's
difference.
or $29.
Yeah.
So you save $10 for every 750 ml.
There you go.
And then it's a little sweeter, and
Yeah.
I really, really, really love it because I mean, some people like. I'm a traditional guy, so it's like a 1-to-1-to-1 ratio. Some people like tip the scales in certain ways.
Some people like
if
a
you
little
like
bit more
it
Campari.
gin.
Some
Yeah,
people like more
exactly.
gin. Yeah.
So for me, I'm a 1-to-1-to-1. So the ratio tastes the best with this Kochi.
Yeah.
I think it's called Kochi. It's driving me crazy.
I love that. I mean,
It's like Joe Rogan. Jamie, look it up.
yeah,
Jamie.
look it up. Look it up. It's on a massive screen.
Yeah, I
that we
don't have a Jamie here.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. Jamie's not here. I don't know why he's not here. But yeah, no. I mean, the cocktail thing is funny because it's like there's so many obviously different cocktails that everyone likes, and
Yeah.
but Negroni is the Porsche of the cocktail world.
Interesting.
That's the
Why
way
do you
I
say
look.
that? Because I think of it as being Italian, so maybe the Ferrari.
Well, yeah, that too. But I think there's more Porsche enthusiasts in the world than there are.
Oh, okay.
From an enthusiast standpoint,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I look at the Porsche people, and they
Right.
all flock together.
Right.
The Negroni people, we all flock together.
That's
We
true.
might not all look the same. We might not all be Italian, but
Right.
we all flock together, right? And we can
We all love Italy. But,
we all love
yeah.
Italy, and we just don't live there.
Right. Who else in your family, outside of your grandmother? Like, are your brothers collectors?
My oldest brother has gotten into watches, vintage watches. He's
Okay.
gotten pretty excited. And my middle brother loves sports memorabilia. He's not a degenerate gambler, which most people associate
Associate
with
the
sports
two.
memorabilia. But
Yeah.
no, he has a really cool, solid collection of stuff and has some good stories. And he has like I think it's either a Jordan ball or a LeBron ball. And it came from the old CEO of Gatorade's collection or something like that. And there was two of them, and the one
It's
they
gotta
sent
be
my
Jordan.
the one they sent my brother from the auction, it actually came flat. And so something happened where they sent him the other one. I don't know. So he has some like pretty interesting stories with memorabilia. But my whole family, like we've all collected stuff as kids, baseball cards, even rocks, and
Yeah.
Pokemon. Like we collected everything under the sun as kids, and we got that from definitely both sets of grandparents. Mainly my grandparents in New York. My mom loved stuff. She was super into couture and fashion and all that stuff, and everything was tailored perfectly. And so she collected, I would say, things like that, in a certain way. And I love looking at collecting in different lights.
Yeah.
You don't have to just be actively going out and buying things to be a collector. If you just have a passion for something, and here and there you add stuff to your collection, who's to say it doesn't make you a collector? Some people have this thing in their head like, oh, I only have 5 watches. I'm not a collector. I'm like, well, then I would say differently. You know what I mean? So,
Well,
yeah.
Justin Hast has like the 2-watch collection.
Right, you
videos
just
and
did
stuff.
that video.
Yeah, which was super fun.
Yeah, he's the man.
But then you look at the comment sections, and then it's always like, "Oh, 2 watches isn't a collection. I'd call it a pair," or something like that. And it's kind of like we're splitting
those
hairs
types of people
with
can
semantics,
screw off
but
because kindly screw off because, in my opinion, obviously, if anyone knows you, those aren't just your 2 watches. Sure. Number one. Number two, the whole idea behind the thing is to bring 2 watches that you feel make a great collection. Number three, if you have 2 watches and you know everything about them and you want to own more and you want to learn more, why are you not a collector? You're eventually going to add a third.
Yeah.
You're eventually going to add a fourth. It's like some people like forget, like, just because this is where someone is at now and they're collecting, that doesn't make you not a collector.
Yeah, because research can be a major component of these hobbies, right?
It
Whether
is.
it be collecting
It takes a lot of
ashtrays
time.
or whatever. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. Usually like affordability has something to do with it too. So it's like, yeah, I only have 2 now, but I'm still researching to really dial in my third
100%.
because I can only afford one every 4 years or something.
Some people wait for their yearly bonus
totally
to go get something and put it towards something that they collect. So yeah, those types of people need to stay off the keyboards.
All right. Well, speaking of watches, what are you wearing right now?
Today I'm wearing a Patek Philippe reference 3796 in rose gold with a rose gold dial. It is luckily Tiffany stamped, and I absolutely adore this reference. It is becoming more popular now, but it is still such a slept-on reference. It is a 1-for-1 reissue of the original 96 down to the proportions. And what I absolutely love about it is it's technically like 30 and a half or 31 millimeters.
Right.
And you tried it on.
Yeah.
It wears like a 34, 35.
Yeah. 34 for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe 35 is pushing it, but
it's such a great piece.
it's so great. It's so thin. It's so classy. It's so Patek.
Yeah.
And if you want a dress watch and you want to get into Patek, these are as affordable as Patek could get.
Right.
And there's not many with obviously a Tiffany stamp. I've seen 2 before I knew about it just from my research go at auction, and one sold on Hodinkee, and then another one was in Japan. But it's the only ones that I know of.
And where did you find it again?
I got this there was a dealer in New York that had it.
Okay.
And him and I were negotiating. While we were negotiating, another collector I know bought it.
Oh, no way.
Mid-negotiation, which is fine because I have it now. But
from the dealer you
from
were
the dealer.
negotiating with?
Yeah, well, we were.
Was it because it was on his website or something?
Yeah, he had it on his website. He
Okay,
was marketing
so
it,
somebody
and
could
first
just-
come, first serve. And
Yeah.
I was, I was kicking not kicking the tire, but I was thinking on the price, and then we were negotiating on the price, and then this guy came in and bought it full price, which I ended up paying.
Right.
I was hounding the guy who bought it. Let me know if you want to sell it. Let me know if I want the watch. Let me know if you want to sell it. And I had a white gold Breguet Classique
Oh, cool.
time only watch, very similar, function to this watch. And I got a message from the collector one day, and he said, "Hey, I want that Breguet." And I said, "Hey, I still want your Tiffany Patek." And he said, "Well, let's just do an even trade. Whatever you paid, as long as it's fair for the Breguet,
Yeah.
plus cash on my end
Yeah.
on top, and we'll call it a day." And that's what it was. It was as easy as that. And
Wow.
that type of trade never happens, where you and the collector have something respectively that you both want.
Sure.
And it was worth every penny.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Now, how did watches come into your life then?
Both my grandfathers always wore a watch.
Okay.
And I always admired the way that they wore them.
What do you mean by that? How did they wear it?
My grandfather in New York would always wear Pateks and Cartier style watches like this, Calatravas and tanks and small dress watches on leather straps. He would wear it with a denim shirt and a Mets hat, eating breakfast in the morning.
Sick.
He would wear it when he went to sell Rolls Royces, and I loved the idea that these dress watches were so versatile.
Yeah.
I'm wearing it with a hat with a vintage patch on it and, a pair of chinos and espadrille sneakers, and it's a Tiffany Patek. And the idea of that to me is so cool.
Yeah.
My other grandfather had a day-date that he would wear with a nice outfit, but he would also wear it with sweatpants and a nylon jacket.
Yellow gold.
Yellow gold, champagne dial, classic day-date. And I also loved the idea of that. And so from a young age, I realized that this is so cool that I only see these watches online or on other people based on the setting that you think they should be worn in.
Right.
But the fact that my grandfather's wearing a denim shirt and a Mets hat, having breakfast in the morning in the kitchen, wearing a watch like this is just so special to me. I don't know why, but I just picked up on it, and I fell in love with watches from an early age. Never really bought any until later on, but I always loved them and I always appreciated them, and Cartier is kind of where I started.
What is the most, or what's the watch with the most wrist time?
Good question. It's summer here in Arizona, so it's 110 degrees out currently, which is absolute madness.
Right.
So I have a Patek Aquanaut, which is great. It's on a rubber strap. It's perfect for summer.
Sure.
And so that gets a lot of wrist time. But honestly, I try and rotate all the watches as much as I can.
I'm the same way.
I will wear sometimes 2 or 3 watches a day.
Yeah.
Kevin O'Leary talks about this all the time. I totally believe in it. I believe everyone should do it because, after lunch, if I go upstairs to grab something or go back up to my desk, whatever it may be, swap out the watch. Like, why not?
Yeah.
They're sitting not too far away sometimes, so why not just go grab one if I have them at home?
Well, and I'm always doing different things throughout the day.
Correct.
So I'll throw this on for that and this
Sometimes
on
you
for
go to a
that,
meeting and
then
a
I'll go
certain
to
watch
dinner.
is
Yeah.
better for a certain meeting that you have. Or sometimes you're going to meet with someone who is into watches, so you want to wear something that you can show them, right? So I wear them all the time. I wear everything. Everything gets pretty even rotation. Of course, unless something new comes in, then there's a little bit of a can't take this off my wrist phase.
What's the grail I have to ask?
That's a good question. I think modern grail would be I would love a 5167R
Okay.
rose gold
Love it.
chocolate dial Nautilus. Now you know I love brown, so it's no secret that that is a rose gold brown watch on a brown rubber strap, and
It's beautiful. My friend Raj has one.
I absolutely adore it. It's if I got offered one today, it's probably the one watch. I'd have to get rid of my steel Aquanaut
Really?
to do it. I mean, the price is just. I mean, it's what, a $45,000 list price. So to have two Aquanauts like just doesn't make sense.
Call me if that happens.
I definitely will, because I know that you want the 5165.
I'm calling dibs.
Yep, it's all yours. And so that's a modern watch that I would love. Vintage, I would love a vintage Daytona.
What?
I mean,
which era?
If I could, I would do like a non-Paul Newman
Okay, so like a 6263
6263
screw down pusher.
Yeah, if I could do a yellow gold one
Oh, nice.
with the black bezel, I mean, and black dial, just that watch is so sexy. Or a big red. I would do a big red too. And so I love a vintage Daytona.
So you're more reverse panda or panda, or like the silver dial?
I think I would go reverse.
You go black dial.
I'd go black dial.
Big red.
Yeah, I think so. I think with the red, it just stands out the most. But then again, I see the silver dial, and I'm like, this is also absolutely gorgeous. I'd probably get the whichever one came up first. I'd actually probably have to go see them two in person somehow, which isn't that hard to do. See two in person, hold them side by side, and just pick one.
Michael Luther has the silver dial. Yeah. Although is his a 6263?
I didn't think his was a big red. I think his was.
It might just be like silver art with black subdials with no Daytona written or no big red.
That's a grail for me. I would absolutely love to own a Crash. I love a Crash.
Yeah.
I'm been a Cartier fan for a long time, so that's a special watch for me. I love a vintage cloche. I just bid on two that came up at auction last week, one at Christie's and one at Sotheby's, and I did not win either.
Really?
And
what'd they go for?
They went for, I think, $32K each before premium.
Okay.
So
that's
actually,
a lot.
A lot, but really great prices for a vintage cloche. Limited edition, obviously. So those are kind of like the immediate grails. I keep a list, and there's things that I follow that I would love to own, but if I had the choices today, I think that those would be killer.
Now you have a vintage Santos Dumont.
I do.
What year is that watch?
Oh man, those are, I want to say 80s.
Oh, okay. They're that new. I thought they were older.
Yep, those are 80s and potentially early 90s, but I don't think so. I think 80s.
And so is that manually wound?
Manual caliber.
Okay.
It is, this one has the guilloche dial, so it came after the reference 1575. This is the 1576 because the 1576 had guilloche dials, if I'm understanding correctly. And
now, is one particularly like more sought after?
Well, some people
like a preference thing.
Some people are like, oh, the Paris dial thing, and I'm like, to me, that's such nonsense. Like having Paris on the dial is way cooler than having Swiss on the dial. Don't get me wrong. But I think that that's such a stupid little nuance that, to me, unless it's vintage, maybe, some of these old Cartiers say France on them, and they're really rare and special. Obviously, you have London. But to have Paris at the bottom of the dials, like, it's not that rare. You could find them any day of the week if you tried hard enough.
Well, it's a small watch, so you can't really see it.
You really can't see it, so it's like really silly. And the 1575s had lacquer dials, so they crack.
Okay.
Which I'm too OCD for that, and if I can avoid it, the guilloche dial is
bulletproof.
Not only that, but it's so subtle, and when it shows up in certain light, it's actually really special to me. I find it to be mesmerizing because it gets a little bit of patina to it. And
I'm with you. Yeah.
I don't really want to. I want to wear them without freaking out too much, and the lacquer thing just bothers me. I don't know why. It just does.
So you're a fan of straps.
I am.
What do you call the color of the strap on your wrist? It's almost, I would call it almost like an Hermes color.
Correct. I would say that this is probably like it's either golden brown Epsom or it's something like that. I can't remember the exact shade.
Right.
But I have a few. I put them on all my Cartiers too, which you probably saw. Same strap. And I just love this color because it is so Hermes, and the quality is of Hermes, and I think it looks good on everything.
Yeah, it's totally versatile. No matter what you're wearing, it looks great.
Yeah, for sure.
Borrowing one of your questions, collecting, not just watches.
Yep.
What's the one that got away?
So I would definitely say the one that got away. Oh, it's such a tough question.
You haven't answered your own question.
It's funny. I know. I wrote all these questions and then I never answered them myself. I've been asked it before, and my answer before was not being privy enough or not having the funds, at an earlier stage in life to buy some of the things that I really want now.
Oh, yeah.
Because a lot of it is prohibitive, right? So to me, those are the ones that got away because from a simple virtue of time, it was impossible.
Mm-hmm.
So vintage cloches, crashes when nobody wanted them, Daytonas when nobody wanted them.
Yeah.
All this stuff, it's less about, I wish I would have, created a relationship with this AD earlier on because now I'd be in the position to have the things that I want. I don't really like that idea. I wouldn't ever want to play that game.
Right.
And so for me, it's the vintage things that I missed. You know what I mean? There's very few things that I don't have in my collection because actually 95% of the things in my collection now are gifts or have a meaning or I bought at a special time or just a special watch like this Tiffany Patek. And so there's very few things that I've owned or wanted to own that got away, I would say. Obviously, from a price standpoint, you always, damn, I could have got that at auction for that. I didn't even know that was at auction. I missed this auction, right? So there's always things like that. But I would say the general answer is probably Cartier's vintage that I want now that are prohibitive because of time.
Right. I heard somebody say the other day they thought the crash was in a bubble, that prices should come down.
They will, but it's still even new at Cartier.
Yeah.
If you get a NSO from Cartier.
Sure.
I think it's still $100K.
Yeah.
And so even if they come down, I'm not going right now and spending $100K
right.
on a crash. It's not happening.
Yeah.
Whereas X amount of years ago, they were a quarter of that.
Right.
And if I had, if I was in the position that I'm in now, I'd sell a lot of things to go get a crash.
Yeah, sure.
You know what I mean? So it's just what it is.
Well, I recently went through a consolidation, as you know. Is that something you would ever do?
Yeah, I've actually started to do that. I started to sell some things to pare down the collection to what I'm really wearing often because I had some really special watches that were just sitting there, and as amazing as it was to just own them, it felt silly to have them when I could put them into something that maybe I knew I'd wear more often.
What was the most recent example of that?
I had
What did you end up getting?
Well, I had a Ralph Lauren Slim Classique, which is a ultra rare watch.
So great.
Good luck finding one sort of watch. I spent years looking for it and finally came up at auction. And crazy story, but I ended up getting it because the guy backed out.
Oh, yeah.
And him and I were battling during bidding, and I didn't realize that I had a bid limit because I'd never been with this auction house before. So they're like, hey, you can only bid up to X amount.
Really?
And so I bid up to that, and he beat me by €100 because
oh, my God.
And I was super hungover from a friend's wedding. Honestly, probably still drunk, sadly. And I woke up and went online to this auction in Italy at 5 a.m. my time, and then lost the auction. It was like, I deserve this because I drank too much last night.
Right.
And I emailed the auction house right away, devastated. I said, if for whatever reason this guy doesn't pay, I want the watch. And they emailed me back, hey, he's trying to do weird payment terms. Like, we're not having it. So if you want it, it's yours.
Wow.
I was like, I'm sending you the wire yesterday.
So you got it.
So I got the watch, and I absolutely love it. It is such a spectacular design. The ultra thin Piaget movements in there, white gold, 38 millimeters.
Is that the hobnail case?
Hobnail case, matching hobnail dial.
Oh my
or
God.
Not hobnail dial, guilloche dial.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Roman numerals?
Roman numerals, Breguet hands. And so I had that watch for a good amount of time, a couple of years. And I just wasn't wearing it that much recently. I loved looking at it. I admired it, but I had two Ralph watches. I have the stirrup. Yeah. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, why am I'm always reaching for the stirrup. I wear that watch all the time.
Huh.
And so I was like, I don't need 2 of these. It's silly to have 2 when I could put this into something else. So I sold the Slim Classique.
Did you make money on it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Good.
A good chunk. And sad to see it go, for sure.
Yeah.
And I would love to have it back just to own it. But that's the thing. I don't want it just to own it. I want it to wear it.
Totally.
And that's why I got rid of it, because I was wearing the stirrup and I reached for that over the Slim Classique every time. Same brand, both Ralph, both ultra thin Puget movements in there.
One black dial, one white dial, though.
Both white silver dials.
Oh, I thought your stirrup was a black dial.
The stirrup is a cream colored ivory dial.
Okay.
And the whatever it's called, the Slim Classique was like a silver dial.
Okay.
And so, similar dials, one's white gold, one's rose gold, different case shapes. I mean, they couldn't be more opposite as watches.
Gotcha.
But again, I was just reaching for the stirrup. So I sold it and I miss it, but I don't regret it because I wasn't wearing it. And it was just an expensive watch to have around to not wear. And I sold it to someone who I'm sure is enjoying it very much.
Sure.
And so that's what I sold recently to put into something else. I got a full rose gold root beer.
Oh, wow.
Which I ended up selling.
Oh, no way.
Because I saw that Rolex made a day-date in 36 millimeters, mid to late 2000s.
Okay.
In rose gold with a chocolate dial. And
Did you get it?
And I went bananas. And I sold these watches. I sold the root beer because I was like,
that's
okay.
my favorite iteration of that watch.
The root beer?
Yeah, of the root beers.
Yeah,
I
the
like
full
the
rose.
full rose.
Yeah, it's spectacular.
Yeah.
I mean, what a dream that watch is. I mean, and I didn't want to sell it, but I was like, okay, but this has a brown dial, and now anyone listening to this knows I'm just gonna shit my pants for a brown dial.
Right.
So I freaked out, and that day-date sold before I could sell my root beer. So now and then I sold my root beer. So now I'm like,
so now you're hunting it.
So, and one just popped up, so I'm working on it. So I'll show you pictures of it after. You'll let me know what you think. But
Yeah.
I just love that Rolex stopped doing it, and then this year they brought it back. But the list price on the 36 rose gold day date that they brought back this year is like $40,000.
Yeah, I was gonna say 40.
And this is like $10,000 less, if not more. So,
well, the root beer is about what, 38?
yeah, I think list price on it is 40.
Okay.
And then, but on the secondary market, I mean, I paid 34.5 or something for mine.
Wow.
And it was a 2020 or something like that, or 2019. I don't remember what it was, but full set, sat in the safe. Actually, I brought it to the dealer, and the dealer was like, this needs to be wound because it sat. And he's like, that's how mint this watch is. So fantastic watch. I loved wearing it, but now I'm, hunting this day date, and I don't know. But the root beers.
Yeah, it's good. My buddy Will has one. I saw it the other day.
I think you posted a picture of it the other day. Yeah, it's spectacular.
Yeah. It's
and it
my
made me
favorite
miss
one.
mine.
Yeah. Well, that's all right.
Yeah.
Well, dude, thank you so much for coming on the show. Is there anything else you want to talk about or promote?
Follow Standard H, follow Collectors Gym Radio, and thank you so much for having me on. For those that don't know, Wes and I played a crazy game of golf this. No, it wasn't crazy. We played a great game of golf this morning. I only lost one ball, so that's a good day for me. Wes played fantastic, and then we had some breakfast, showed him this car collection, and then we have one more thing to check out later, so I'm excited for that. But
This has been such an amazing day, man. I can't thank you enough.
Thank you
for the time and the hospitality.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course.
I'll see you in California next time.
Look forward to it.
Cheers.
Thanks. This wraps up this episode of the Standard H podcast. If you like what you heard, I'd love it if you'd share it with a friend or two. And if you have a moment, please rate and review the show, as it helps others discover these episodes. It absolutely helps far more than you realize. Shout out to Jensen Reed and Super Beautiful for the theme track. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.